All right, next. All right, on one of these teams that we talked about in here, talking about some a couple of we all had these three teams in the playoff, all I think all with home games, if not being in the top four. Alabama, first up, Cole, floor's yours.
Last season was not what anyone expected out in Tuscaloosa, but you also got to remember this was a year of, in my opinion, restructuring, not just in terms of culture, but in terms of identity. Things were not going well for Nick Saban down the stretch. Remember that, yes, you made the college football playoff in 2023, but you did not have the same offensive personnel and identity that you really wanted back when you were winning national titles with Steve Sarkisian as your OC and Mike Locksley as your OC and Lane Kiffin as your OC. Like Tommy Rees was not even in the top three names initially to take over. And you also saw a regression defensively. So this was a very underwhelming end to Nick Saban's career for what we know, even though he still was able to win an SEC title, win a conference. I mean, beat Auburn in the final game on another miraculous play. But it was a very different end. So Kalen DeBoer comes on in knowing what the expectations are, knowing what the gratitude and what the gravitas is of playing it out in Tuscaloosa. And he has some moments that are really impressive for a first-year coach. He beats Georgia, and he dismantles Georgia in the first half, and thankfully, the weapon of mass destruction that was Ryan Williams on a Saturday in the fourth quarter silenced the Bulldogs to complete the revamp of the comeback. They also beat LSU out in Death Valley, which is a place that Alabama's owned with Nick Saban. They didn't know if it was going to happen with Kalen DeBoer. Jalen Milroe looked the part. But then they had the hiccups. They lose to Tennessee, and they lose because of an inept offense in the entire second half. They lose to Vanderbilt, which is one of the biggest upsets we've seen in college football history. They lose to Oklahoma with a college football playoff berth on the line, with Jackson Arnold kind of turning into Jalen Milroe 2.0. Meanwhile, the offensive line that gave up the most sacks in college football among Power 4 teams only allowed one sack that night, and Alabama's offensive line gave up 5. So a night and day difference. It ended off on the most disgusting note, in my opinion, the most unforgivable loss for Kalen DeBoer, a loss to a Michigan team that was resting almost all of its starters because they went off to the NFL or just didn't want to play in the game. So times need to change. What happened this offseason? In my personal opinion, boys, it's very similar to what we saw out in Ohio State. Courtney Morgan sat players down and said, hey, you don't want to go to the pros. No, you want to come back here. Here's a nice little check for you. Go ahead and cash on it. And they looked at the numbers and they say, you're right. I do want to come back to the University of Alabama and be a part of this new culture and be a part of the identity that leads us to what is a same ending, different story for Kalen DeBoer in year 2. And this is why when people say, well, they spent $20 million out at Ohio State. Yeah, they did it internally. They didn't do it for the external players. Alabama did the exact same thing with Jeremy Bernard, with LT Overton, with Deontay Lawson, with Keon Sabb, with Damani Jackson, with Parker Brailsford. And that's become the foundation. The biggest thing that happened this offseason for them was bringing back Ryan Grubb. I mean, that was the perfect Robin to Kalen DeBoer's Batman. They found success at Fresno State. They found back-to-back years of success with quarterback play at Washington that led them to a national title. And there was a certain brand of quarterback that really fit for them. They have all three guys now running the show with Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, and now named starter Ty Simpson. Good overall recruiting trail. They finished top 3 once again underneath Kalen DeBoer. No drop off from what we saw from Nick Saban to a new coach who's never recruited in the SEC. And they also had a very, very, very good transfer portal class, adding in guys such as Cam Calhoun, the nickel defensive back from Utah, and Isaiah Horton from the University of Miami, who has been, so far at camp, one of the big standouts and could be in for a Jameson Williams type year. This is a team that has, in my opinion, the highest upside if you didn't know the quarterback. This is also the team to where if you tell me what that quarterback stat line is, I will tell you what Alabama's record is. Because it all comes down to Ty Simpson being a quality player. Top to bottom, I think this is the most complete team in the SEC. Defensive line, it maybe doesn't have a lot of depth, but it has great starters. Linebacking core, I think that N'Keal Hill-Green coming on in from Colorado, one of the more slept-on players, they're going to be the number 1 secondary in college football. Offensive line, I think, is better because of the type of culture that you want to implement with Kalen DeBoer and the players that he brought in. The wide receiver room has a shot to be the top 3 unit in college football. I think the running back room looks great We all saw Jim Miller. It was like the kid that we didn't see over the summer, and he was like 5'11", then comes back and he grows to 6'7", and now he's playing basketball when he was supposed to be a chess nerd. Like, that's him putting on the muscle, looking like Derrick Henry 2.0. It all just comes down to Ty Simpson. And honestly, I don't think you need Ty Simpson to be anything more than just a game facilitator, all-star point guard. Do what AJ McCarron did. Do what Greg McElroy did. Put yourself in a position to where you are not putting the ball in harm's way, but what you're allowing is more chances for your offense to strike. If he does that, this may be the most explosive offense in college football. It could be one of the best passing attacks in the sport. They could go undefeated. I don't think that they will, but they could. They are that complete, I think, going into this year. A lot of pressure resides on how do you start the season. Florida State, we already know what that game is like. Then you have to travel after a bye week to take on Georgia. You don't lose at Stanford. They never lose at Stanford. One time since 2019. And they haven't lost to a ranked opponent since 2016 at Stanford underneath Kirby Smart. How do you handle business there? How do you handle business against teams that you're supposed to beat? Like Tennessee taking a step back this year. Vanderbilt coming into your backyard. You welcome in Oklahoma, who had a great offseason with John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle joining the show. But still, it's the Crimson Tide. It's Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's Dixieland on a Saturday night. You got to make those moments count. And then, of course, you have the two other milestone games, a homecoming matchup on the road at Williams-Brice Stadium, the ultimate underrated Cathedral of Chaos. Lenore Sellers wants revenge for missing that 2-point conversion in Tuscaloosa last year. And then you have to face off against LSU at home Saturday night. In my opinion, one of the staple games in college football year in, year out. It is plant your butt television must-have moment for any college football aficionado. And also you got to go play in Jordan-Hare, where the voodoo magic of the shaman man that resides underneath the stadium seeps on through for a crazy, wacky ending that we always know is bound to come. Alabama, in my opinion, I think I think that their record is going to be 11-1. I think their ceiling is 12-0. I think their floor is 9-3. But if they miss the college football playoff this year, Kalen DeBoer is not getting fired. I think everyone needs to temper their expectations and not even go to that level. But you want to talk about somebody who is actually going to be on the hot seat? There are people out in Norman, Oklahoma saying at this point, if Brent Venables doesn't get to 9 wins, he's fired. If Alabama doesn't make the college football playoff next year, Kalen DeBoer, regardless of what his record is probably shown the door.
So on Simpson, because that's probably the most intriguing part with that being announced today. It was assumed before, or not announced today, but announced this week and assumed pretty heavily that would be the direction it goes. If they're to lose games that they shouldn't lose, right? So I would put Florida State in that category. I wouldn't put Georgia in that category. I don't think I'd put LSU in that category. Like, you just really should not lose games. I mean, you shouldn't lose games when you're a 2-touchdown favorite, but it is going on the road. It's his first time starting a major game like that. If they were to lose a game like a Florida State or, I don't know, a Tennessee or a Vandy again, is it because Simpson didn't live up? Is it because he tried to do too much? Like, is he the cause of losing? I mean, yeah, if Castellanos, which I'm not projecting this, but goes for 400 yards, yeah, I mean, you're gonna lose a lot of games like that. But if is the most likely scenario if they're losing games they shouldn't on the quarterback play?
I think so. And I don't think that at the same time we're going to wait long for that leash to be pulled. Again, yeah. we know what's waiting in the wings. Austin Mack was handpicked by Ryan Grubb to lead the offense at Washington. He then was told by Kalen DeBoer, I'm taking the job in Tuscaloosa. I want you to be my backup quarterback and compete for starting reps. They have Keelan Russell. Keelan Russell is the future of this team. He has everything that you want in a starting quarterback and then some, and he's done well at camp at times. Now, again, the way that it was described and the way that Ryan Grubb has talked about it the entire offseason is that 15 is our quarterback until otherwise. If we had to start a game today, we'd go with Ty Simpson. It never felt like this was a job that was really open. What it felt like more so, it was Ty Simpson's job to lose and Austin Mack's job and Keelan Russell's job to push him to end up losing it. But not their job to gain. It was always, in my opinion, he has to lose this job for them to go in a different direction. He has to be dreadful. He hasn't been. And honestly, when I look at this overall personnel perspective, it's hard for me to doubt Ty Simpson because of two things really stand out. Number one, the loyalty to the program, the loyalty to being a part of Alabama football when he could have gone anywhere over the last 2 years, especially when Nick Saban left. But also, I think the fact of we've seen Kalen DeBoer's offense at its peak. It's top 5 scoring unit. top 5 in passing, 2 1,000-yard receivers, a 1,000-yard rusher, a Davey O'Brien Award winner, a Heisman finalist. And it wasn't just at Washington, it was at Fresno State. People forget how well Jake Hayner played his last year there. So you add all that together, in my humble belief, if it does not work for Ty Simpson, the fact of the matter is you got two guys that are going to, I think, elevate your status just as much as he could. So I'm not really worried about the quarterback position. I think that if Ty Simpson puts it in harm's way, it could lead to a loss. I think it could also lead to a benching.